The average American net worth by age numbers you find online are almost always the wrong figures to compare yourself to. Not because the data is wrong, but because average and median are completely different things. And using the wrong one will either make you feel artificially good or unnecessarily terrible about where you stand. I'm going to give you both numbers, explain why only one of them matters for most people, and then tell you what to actually do depending on where you are. Comparing yourself financially to average is something almost everyone does, and almost no one does correctly. You've probably looked up the number, felt either relieved that you're above it or deflated that you're not, and then gone on with your day without the information actually changing anything. The problem is that most comparisons don't account for the massive wealth concentration at the top of every age bracket. A 45-year-old with $10 million in a brokerage account is in the same average as a 45-year-old with $12,000 in a savings account, and the millionaire's number drags the average so far up that the comparison becomes meaningless for everyone who isn't in the top decile. You deserve to know where you actually stand, not inflated by billionaires skewing the mean, not filtered through aspirational benchmarks, just real data, correctly interpreted, with honest context about what it means. Let me give you the numbers, and let me give you the framework for interpreting them honestly so you actually know what to do with the answer. Before we look at the numbers, I want to address something that often gets left out of these conversations. Net worth in America is extremely concentrated, and that concentration is structural, not primarily the result of better decisions at the individual level. The Federal Reserve data shows that the top 10% of households hold approximately 67% of total U.S. wealth. The bottom 50% hold about 3.5%. That distribution means that averages are pulled dramatically upward by a small number of very large values, making mean net worth a misleading comparison point for the vast majority of people. There's also an inheritance factor that rarely gets discussed in the "here's what the average person has" framing. A Federal Reserve study found that inherited wealth accounts for a substantial portion of wealth accumulation, particularly in higher brackets. People who received meaningful family financial support, down payment gifts, tuition paid, inheritance, start at a structurally different point than people who didn't, regardless of individual financial behavior. This isn't a grievance. It's a calibration point. If you're comparing your net worth to someone who received a $50,000 down payment gift and you did not, you're not comparing the same inputs. Your trajectory may be just as strong or stronger given your starting point. Understanding this doesn't change your numbers, but it changes the shame load you're carrying about them, which matters for making clear-headed decisions. Here are the real numbers from the Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances, the most recent full survey available. Under 35, median net worth approximately $39,000, average net worth approximately $183,000. The gap between median and average here is enormous, $144,000, and that gap is entirely explained by the high-end outliers pulling the average up. The median is the number that represents the person in the middle of the distribution. Half of people under 35 have less than $39,000, half have more. That's the relevant benchmark for most people. Ages 35 to 44, median approximately $135,000, average approximately $549,000. Ages 45 to 54, median approximately $247,000, average approximately $975,000. Ages 55 to 64, median approximately $364,000, average approximately $1.6 million. The gap widens at every age bracket, which reflects wealth concentration growing more extreme as high earners accumulate more. The median is always the number that tells you about the middle of the actual population. Now, what do you do with this information? First, compare yourself to the median, not the average. That's your peer group, not the outlier inflated mean. Second, understand that net worth includes home equity, retirement accounts, and all assets minus all debts. If you own a home, its equity counts. If you have a 401k, it counts. If you have $20,000 in a Roth IRA and $35,000 in car loans, your net worth from those two things is negative $15,000. It's the full picture. Third, and this is the part that actually matters, compare your trajectory to your past self, not to a median. The median is useful as a calibration point, not as a source of judgment. A 34-year-old who started with nothing and has built $40,000 in net worth over 3 years is on a strong trajectory. A 34-year-old with $150,000 who received a $100,000 inheritance and hasn't added to it in 4 years is on a weaker one. The number matters less than the direction. My own net worth at 30 was around $14,000 when I added everything up honestly, a small savings account, a modest 401k, minus one credit card balance. Well below the median at the time. 5 years later, after consistent systematic action, it had grown to over $90,000. Not because anything dramatic happened. Because direction. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. My net worth is negative right now mostly because of student loans or credit card debt? Does that mean I'm fundamentally behind? Here's the honest answer. Negative net worth in your 20s or early 30s, when that negative is primarily student loan debt, is extremely common and not an indicator of financial failure. It's the result of a front-loaded investment in education that was expected to produce income growth. Whether it actually does depends on what you earn versus what you borrowed. The more important number when net worth is negative is your rate of change. Are you moving from negative $40,000 towards zero, or are you staying flat or moving further negative? The direction of movement is more predictive of financial outcomes than the current position. If you're moving positive, even slowly, you're building. If you're not moving, that's the problem to address. Here's what I want you to walk away with. The average net worth numbers that seem to get cited everywhere are usually the mean, not the median, and the mean is pulled dramatically upward by concentrated wealth. The median is the comparison that actually tells you where most people stand. And for most people in most age brackets, the median is probably closer to your number than the average you've been measuring against. More than any comparison, the question worth asking is my net worth moving in the right direction? That answer is something you actually control. The benchmark is just context. If this helped, subscribe. I put out one of these every week, and they build on each other. And if you want to see how to build an emergency fund from scratch, even on a very tight budget, I linked that video right here. Watch that one next.